What do you do when the person who's supposed to lift you up tears you down instead? Sarah grappled with this question as she stood in her cramped kitchen, staring at the pile of plastic trinkets scattered across the counter. Her kids, Lily and Max, were in the living room, giggling over the latest haul from their Aunt Linda, a bag of dollar store junk gaudy keychains, flimsy toy cars, and a glittery wand that had already snapped in half. Sarah's heart sank, not because of the toys, but because of the note tucked inside the bag, written in Linda's sharp, judgmental scrawl. Maybe if you were a better parent, they'd have real toys. Sarah's fingers trembled as she crumpled the note. She was a single mom, working 2 jobs to keep the lights on in their tiny apartment. Every dollar went to rent, groceries, or the kids' school supplies. Toys, those were a luxury. But Lily, 6, and Max, 8, never complained. They built forts from old blankets and turned empty cereal boxes into spaceships. Their laughter was her fuel, her reason to keep going. Yet Linda, her older sister, never missed a chance to remind Sarah of her supposed failures. The dollar store gifts were less about the kids and more about Linda's need to feel superior, a jab at Sarah's struggles wrapped in a cheap plastic bow. The weight of the day pressed down on Sarah as she leaned against the counter. Her shift at the diner had been brutal spilled coffee, rude customers, and a boss who docked her pay for being 5 minutes late. Now this. She wanted to scream, to call Linda, and unleash years of pent-up frustration. But what good would that do? Linda thrived on drama, twisting every argument to make Sarah feel small. Instead, Sarah took a deep breath and glanced at her kids. Lily was tying a ribbon around Max's wrist, declaring him Captain Sparkle. Their joy was a quiet rebellion against the world's harshness, and Sarah refused to let Linda dim it. The idea struck her late that night, after the kids were asleep. She sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by scraps of paper, glue, and a shoebox she'd been saving for a rainy day. If Linda thought Sarah was failing, she'd show her what kind of parent she really was, not with words, but with something real. Something that carried the weight of her love for her kids. She worked through the night, her hands moving with purpose, crafting a gift that would speak louder than Linda's insults. The next morning, Sarah drove to Linda's pristine suburban home, the gift box tucked under her arm. Her heart pounded as she knocked on the door. Linda answered, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arching in surprise. "Sarah, what's this about?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. "I brought you something," Sarah said, holding out the box. "For you and the kids." Linda's lips pursed, but she took the box and opened it. Inside was a scrapbook, its cover decorated with pressed flowers and the words, "Family is everything," written in Lily's wobbly handwriting. Sarah had spent hours filling it with memories. Photos of the kids laughing at the park, ticket stubs from their first movie outing, and drawings they'd made for each other. There were notes, 2 little messages from Sarah to her kids, reminders of how much she loved them, written on nights when the world felt too heavy. Linda flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. Sarah braced herself for a snide remark, but then something unexpected happened. The door behind Linda opened, and a teenage girl stepped out. Emma, Linda's stepdaughter, whom Sarah hadn't seen in years. Emma was 16, with a guarded look and earbuds dangling from her neck. She glanced at the scrapbook, then at Sarah, and something softened in her eyes. "Is this for us?" Emma asked, her voice hesitant. Sarah nodded, caught off guard. "It's for family, to remind us what matters." Emma reached for the scrapbook, her fingers tracing a photo of Lily and Max building a sandcastle. "My mom used to make stuff like this," she said quietly. Before she left, the air shifted. Linda's face flushed, and for the first time, Sarah saw a crack in her sister's polished facade. Emma's words hung between them. A reminder that Linda's perfect life wasn't as flawless as she pretended. Sarah hadn't known about Emma's mother, hadn't realized the girl carried that kind of loss. Suddenly, Linda's need to judge made sense not as an excuse, but as a glimpse into her own insecurities. She wasn't just attacking Sarah. She was deflecting from her own struggles as a stepmother, trying to fill a role she didn't fully understand. "I didn't know," Sarah said softly, meeting Emma's gaze. "I'm glad you like it." Emma clutched the scrapbook to her chest, her eyes glistening. "Can I show this to Lily and Max sometime?" she asked. "Of course," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "They'd love that." Linda stood silent, her hands fidgeting. Sarah waited for her to say something, anything, but Linda only nodded stiffly and closed the door. It wasn't the apology Sarah had secretly hoped for, but it was enough. She'd come to prove a point, not to start a fight. As she drove home, she felt lighter, like she'd reclaimed a piece of herself. That evening, Sarah sat with Lily and Max, helping them glue new drawings into their own scrapbook twin to the one she'd given Linda. They laughed and argued over whose picture was better, their voices filling the apartment with warmth. Sarah realized that Linda's words, though painful, had pushed her to create something beautiful, something that captured the love she poured into her kids every day. It wasn't about proving Linda wrong. It was about proving to herself that she was enough. Weeks later, an unexpected package arrived at Sarah's door. It was a small box, no note, just a collection of art supplies, crayons, markers, and a stack of colorful paper. There was also a photo of Emma, Lily, and Max, taken at a park Sarah didn't recognize. They were laughing, their faces smeared with ice cream. Sarah's breath caught. She didn't know when Emma had visited or how she'd gotten the photo, but it didn't matter. It was a gesture, a quiet acknowledgement that something had shifted. Sarah never got an apology from Linda, and maybe she never would. But as she tucked the photo into the scrapbook, she felt a flicker of hope. Family was messy, imperfect, and sometimes painful, but it was also worth fighting for. She'd given Linda a gift, not just of memories, but of perspective, a reminder that love wasn't measured by money or perfection, but by the moments that lingered in the heart. As Sarah watched her kids chase each other around the living room, wielding their dollar store wands like swords, she smiled. They didn't need expensive toys or a perfect mom. They had her, and she had them, and that was more than enough.